There are tales whispered across the warp, stories of a being who never belonged to any single realm, yet carried the weight of entire worlds upon his shoulders. But imagine for a moment a fracture in destiny, a timeline where the cold forge of the Imperium shaped a different kind of warrior, not born on ancient soil, not hardened by mortal vengeance, but engineered as a Primarch, one molded by psychic storms, genetic might, and cosmic intention. This is the question few dare to ask. What if Kratos was born as a Primarch? In this timeline, the scattered Primarchs drift through the warp like burning comets. Among them, a capsule spirals through a tempest of psychic turbulence, its contents absorbing the raw emotions of forgotten civilizations and the hatred of 1,000 dying stars. When it crashes upon a war-torn frontier world, the pod does not reveal a child of innocence. Rather, a being whose presence radiates a primal intensity unlike any other. A people fear him before they ever understand him. Kratos grows not with calm guidance, but with the constant pull of an inner storm. Other Primarchs manifest elegance, command, or brilliance. Kratos manifests will, a crushing, unbreakable force that bends even hardened warriors to silence. His strength evolves at a terrifying pace. By his teenage years, he is not a leader in training, but a living weapon shaped by conflict, instinct, and an urge to protect those who cannot protect themselves. Where most Primarchs discover their purpose through diplomacy or enlightenment, Kratos discovers his through confrontation. Raiders, warlords, and mutants, who once terrorized entire regions, now fall before a single blows of raw, disciplined fury. Yet what sets him apart is not his might, it is his control. Unlike the furious titan of other timelines, this Kratos learns early that unchecked power can consume entire worlds. He fights not to destroy, but to define himself. When the Emperor eventually finds him, the reunion is unlike any other. The psychic imprint left on Kratos is heavier, denser, more violent than anything the Emperor has encountered. Yet beneath that layered rage lies clarity, a mind sharpened by survival, and a heart that burns with a desire for structure, purpose, and belonging. The Emperor recognizes something unique, a Primarch who channels destructive potential with deliberate restraint. Kratos is given command of a legion unlike any other, not defined by speed, stealth, or overwhelming firepower. His legion embodies discipline through controlled fury. Their training is harsh, their expectations brutal, and their loyalty absolute. These warriors fear nothing, not even pain, because they follow a Primarch who has mastered the storm within himself. They are known across the Imperium as the Crimson Phalanx. Unlike his brothers, Kratos does not seek glory, admiration, or philosophical debate. His presence in the war council chambers is minimal, his words few, but his strategies devastating. He studies battlefields not as theaters of domination, but as puzzles, calculating the most efficient route to stability with minimal collateral destruction. His tactics are precise, surgical, and terrifyingly effective. 8. Yet the warp never forgets a soul like his. Even as Kratos marches across the galaxy, there are whispers among the demonic entities of the Imperium. Whispers of a being forged with an anomaly in his essence. Something about him resists corruption more violently than any Primarch before him. The warp recoils from his presence, like predators sensing a deeper predator hidden beneath stillness. And, despite his restraint, conflict is always drawn toward Kratos. Rival Primarchs misinterpret his silence as hostility. Others fear that his inward focus hides ambitions too dangerous to ignore. Yet Kratos remains indifferent. His only loyalty lies with humanity's future, one he envisions as orderly, structured, and forged through relentless discipline. But the galaxy does not reward clarity. During the Great Crusade, Kratos encounters a xeno-civilization unlike any he has ever faced. Beings who manipulate emotional frequencies as weapons, amplifying rage, sorrow, and despair. For most Primarchs, such psychic warfare would be disastrous. For Kratos, it unlocks something deeper, a confrontation with his past self, the version that might have existed had he embraced chaos instead of control. This internal battle becomes his greatest trial, not fought with blades or armor, but in the silent fractures of the mind. He emerges victorious, not because he suppresses his emotions, but because he accepts them, integrates them, and turns them into a unified core of unshakable will. His legion witnesses their Primarch return changed, not darker, not brighter, but more complete. News of his transformation spreads through the Imperium. Some Primarchs view it with caution, fearing Kratos may evolve beyond their understanding. Others recognize it as a necessary evolution for the wars still to come. Yet Kratos himself remains focused. The galaxy is vast, unstable, and filled with threats that thrive on weakness. He intends to give humanity a foundation strong enough to challenge anything, no matter how ancient or cosmic in scale. Yet beneath this storm-crafted warrior, another force waited to awaken, a tension between destiny and defiance. Kratos was not a Primarch shaped by quiet loyalty. He was a being sculpted by conflict itself. The Imperium expected unwavering obedience, an unbreakable chain of command stretching from Terra to the front lines. But Kratos possessed a trait no laboratory could engineer: the refusal to kneel before any cosmic hierarchy. This made him unpredictable, a variable the Emperor would recognize too late, a warrior whose strength came not from purpose assigned, but purpose claimed. As his legion rose, so too did the stories surrounding their commander. Where other Primarchs inspired awe, Kratos inspired momentum. Campaigns under his banner surged forward like avalanches, crushing worlds in decisive, brutal strokes. His tactics had no patience for prolonged sieges. He preferred clarity, overwhelming power, delivered at the most vulnerable fracture point. And while the Imperium applauded results, it quietly feared the pattern emerging. Kratos was becoming less a general of the Imperium and more a force of nature the Imperium temporarily aligned with. The turning point arrived on a frontier world resisting compliance. Negotiations had failed, diplomacy shattered, and a rebellious war host fortified its capital. Most Primarchs would stage a planetary campaign. Kratos chose another path. He landed alone at the heart of their defenses, walking through firestorms and orbital shells as if the world itself recoiled from him. When the enemy commander confronted him, expecting parley, Kratos answered only with action, a single strike that collapsed the fortress gates like a dying star imploding. The world surrendered before his legion even touched the surface. The turning point arrived on a frontier world resisting compliance. Negotiations had failed, diplomacy shattered, and a rebellious war host fortified its capital. Most Primarchs would stage a planetary campaign. Kratos chose another path. He landed alone at the heart of their defenses, walking through firestorms and orbital shells as if the world itself recoiled from him. When the enemy commander confronted him, expecting parley, Kratos answered only with action, a single strike that collapsed the fortress gates like a dying star imploding. The world surrendered before his legion even touched the surface. This victory echoed across the Imperium, but its method sowed concern. Many asked, what happens when a being born for war discovers he does not need an army to execute judgment? Some Primarchs admired him. Others whispered that Kratos embodied war taken to its purest, most unrestrained form. He was proof that a Primarch could surpass the boundaries of purpose and become something potent enough to challenge the very structure that created him. And this, above all, unsettled the Emperor, not out of fear for himself, but fear for the fragile unity holding the Imperium together. Unknown to the Imperium, the Ruin Storm watched him with interest. Entities that dwelled within the Imperium sensed the turbulence within Kratos' mind. Not corruption, but conflict. He was unyielding, not impressionable, perfect, and therefore useless to them. They could not influence him, for a mind driven by personal resolve leaves no space for whispers. And so they observed him as a paradox, a being forged by violence who could not be bent by it. This made Kratos unlike any Primarch before or after, a weapon uncontaminated by its own destructive nature. Yet conflict brewed within the Imperium itself. Several Primarchs held strict interpretations of the imperial truth, valuing order, control, and strategic precision. Kratos, in contrast, embodied raw agency, the idea that willpower alone could redefine the boundaries of possibility. His methods clashed not with doctrine but with pride. Some feared his rise, some envied him, and some quietly planned to restrict him. They viewed Kratos not as a brother, but as a storm that needed containment, lest it reshape the galaxy according to its own momentum. Tensions reached their peak during a campaign on a metallic desert world where two Primarchs held conflicting strategies. One demanded a methodical siege. Kratos demanded direct confrontation. The argument escalated, and for the first time, the legions witnessed the collision of Primarch wills, not in war, but in ideology. When Kratos stepped forward, the ground itself cracked beneath his stride. The other Primarch felt the weight of a presence that belonged not to a tactician, but to a conquering force forged through timeless struggle. The conflict ended with no blows exchanged, only silence heavy as gravity. Whispers spread across the Imperium. Could Kratos challenge his brothers? Could he challenge the Emperor? These questions were dangerous, yet unavoidable. And though Kratos himself never voiced such intentions, the idea alone carried momentum. Entire war hosts began to see him as a symbol of unrestrained strength, the embodiment of what a Primarch could be without chains, without expectations, without a throne overhead. His presence created a philosophical divide within the Imperium. Was strength meant to serve order or shape it? The Emperor eventually summoned Kratos to Terra. This meeting became legend, though no record survives. Some say the Golden Throne chamber dimmed as the two forces stood face to face, one shaped by design, the other shaped by defiance. No confrontation occurred. Instead, the Emperor made an uncharacteristic decision. He assigned Kratos to the most distant war zones, far from the political heart of the Imperium. It was not banishment, nor distrust. It was containment. For the first time, the Emperor had encountered a creation whose trajectory he could not predict. Kratos accepted this silently. He held no animosity, no rebellion. He simply followed the path that allowed him to fight, to conquer, to shape reality through action. In the far reaches of the galaxy, he became myth. Some worlds claimed he carved mountain ranges with his bare hands. Others swore he battled titanic bioforms that blackened entire skies. His legion followed him with absolute conviction, not because he was their Primarch, but because he embodied the pure essence of war, distilled into a single unstoppable presence. But distance from Terra brought new consequences. The farther Kratos traveled, the more he became his own axis of power. Supply lines weakened. Imperial oversight faded. His legion adapted. Their armor grew heavier, their tactics more primal. Their reputation shifting from disciplined warriors to a force that operated on instinct, sharpened by necessity. They became known as the Severed Flame, a legion whose fury burned independent of imperial doctrine, guided solely by the will of their commander. The Severed Flame did not rebel. They did not turn. They simply evolved into something the Imperium did not design. This frightened many. A legion that answered to a Primarch whose spirit could not be contained was an unpredictable factor in a galaxy already drowning in threats. And yet, despite these fears, Kratos' campaign saved countless worlds, halted numerous Xenos invasions, and stabilized entire regions that would have otherwise collapsed into ruin. He was, paradoxically, both the Imperium's greatest asset and its greatest unknown. The true test of Kratos' loyalty came when a catastrophic incursion erupted along the galactic rim. Warp storms split reality, birthing Leviathan horrors that consumed star systems. The Imperium could not respond fast enough, but Kratos did. Without waiting for orders, he launched his legion into the heart of the cosmic tempest. Entire fleets vanished. Astropathic signals screamed into static. To most, the region was as good as dead. But Kratos was not most. He carved a path through impossibility itself, rallying broken human enclaves and igniting a counteroffensive that stunned Imperial strategists. The campaign became a saga sung across void stations and frontier colonies. They spoke of Kratos standing amidst collapsing reality, his presence anchoring entire battalions through sheer will. They described him dragging titanic warp-spawned behemoths to the ground, breaking them with force that defied the limitations even Primarchs accepted as natural law. These tales spread quickly, and with them, a realization took hold. Kratos was no longer simply a Primarch. He was a phenomenon. When the Imperium finally arrived to reclaim the region, they did not find ashes. They found order restored through chaos, stability carved through destruction, and a legion transformed by the fires they had walked through. Kratos stood at the center of it all, silent, unclaimed by triumph or exhaustion. The Imperial commanders sent to assess him felt something they rarely experienced: uncertainty. For how do you measure a warrior who operates on principles outside the Imperial spectrum? Terra demanded a report. Kratos delivered only this: the enemy was defeated. No embellishment, no justification. And though the High Lords dissected his every word for hidden meaning, they found none. Kratos did not scheme. He did not manipulate. He simply acted, driven by the same internal force that had defined him since the day he emerged from his capsule, a force the Imperium relied on, but could not control. Yet even this was not the climax of his legend. That moment came when an extragalactic tear opened, a breach so vast it threatened to consume an entire subsector. Imperial forces scrambled. Astropaths collapsed. Every sensor flickered with warnings of annihilation. Kratos did not wait. He led the severed flame into the breach, wielding their fury as both shield and spear. For hours, days, or perhaps moments, time lost all meaning. They battled the impossible. When the storm finally collapsed, silence reigned, broken only by a single transmission. The breach is sealed. Nothing more. But across the Imperium, the message rippled like a shockwave. A Primarch had stood against a cosmic wound large enough to erase entire systems, and survived. The debate in the Imperial Palace was immediate and intense. Some demanded he be recalled. Others argued he be celebrated. A few whispered that Kratos represented a new kind of Primarch, one who did not fit in the Emperor's grand design, yet whose existence expanded the boundaries of what the Primarch project could become. Legends claim the Emperor watched these events from the throne in contemplative silence. Perhaps he saw in Kratos the reflection of an ancient truth, that not all power seeks dominion. Some power simply moves forward, carving its path through resistance, unconcerned with hierarchies or cosmic thrones. A power driven not by obedience, but by persistence. And though the Emperor never spoke publicly of Kratos again, many believed he understood that this particular Primarch represented a force even he had never fully anticipated. In the centuries that followed, Kratos and the severed flame drifted into myth. Some claim they vanished into the rim, still fighting the remnants of cosmic storms. Others believed they patrol the void eternally, neutralizing threats before the Imperium ever becomes aware of them. And a few whispered of sightings, a towering figure with ash-white skin and a crimson mark, appearing on battlefields where the odds were unwinnable, tipping the scales before disappearing without a trace. So, what if Kratos were born as a Primarch? He would become the Imperium's most unpredictable champion, a being who followed neither rebellion nor obedience, but a third path, carved by relentless will. A force capable of reshaping campaigns, stabilizing collapsing regions, and challenging the very expectations that created him. Not a ruler, not a destroyer, but a storm that walks. A warrior whose legend would echo across the galaxy long after the Imperium forgets its own history. And in the darkest corners of the void, if you listen closely, some still claim to hear his voice, a whisper carried on cosmic winds. War is not my purpose, it is my nature.